The void between stars rarely whispered, but today it hummed with anticipation. Jack Thompson leaned back in his chair, the holographic displays of the United Earth Defense Consortium's Deep Space Monitoring Center casting blue-green shadows across his weathered face. 47 years old, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that had seen too much classified information, he was the kind of man who breathed strategic thinking. "Incoming quantum signature," muttered Sarah Reyes, his lead detection specialist. Her fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces, pulling apart layers of spatial data that would look like meaningless noise to an untrained eye. Jack knew better. Every anomaly meant something. Every unexplained ripple in space-time could be the first sign of something larger. The Zarkonian approach wasn't subtle. They never were. Massive gravitational disturbances preceded their fleet like cosmic bulldozers, announcing their presence with the arrogance of a civilization that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their ships were technological nightmares. Kilometer-long structures of obsidian-like metal and quantum-locked energy matrices that could reduce entire planetary populations to atomic dust in milliseconds. Admiral Krelax, commander of the 73rd Imperial Subjugation Fleet, reviewed the preliminary scans of the Earth system with a mixture of boredom and contempt. Humans were classified as a Tier 3 primitive civilization in the Galactic cataloging database. Their technology was laughable, their planetary defenses practically non-existent. This would be another routine pacification mission. What Krelax didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. The global network of quantum sensors that Jack Thompson managed was just the visible tip of a massive, hidden iceberg. Beneath mountains, inside hollowed-out asteroids, and within seemingly ordinary industrial complexes, humanity had been building something extraordinary. It wasn't just a military preparation. It was a species-wide immune response. "Tracking confirms," Sarah said, her voice steady. "Zarkonian fleet is approximately 3.2 light-years from Earth. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Jack nodded, pressing a seemingly innocuous communication stud hidden in his collar. Across 6 continents, in underground facilities, research centers, and military installations, teams that had been waiting for years began to move. In the Nevada desert, a complex of buildings that appeared to be nothing more than a standard research facility began to shift. Massive hydraulic systems, hidden beneath layers of advanced camouflage technology, started to reconfigure massive defensive platforms. Quantum-locked energy capacitors, developed through a combination of theoretical physics and pure human audacity, hummed to life. Beneath the Andes Mountains, an entire city of technological innovation awakened. Researchers who had spent decades developing adaptive nanotechnology, quantum communication systems, and weapons that could reshape themselves faster than thought could travel, began their final preparations. In orbit, what appeared to be standard communication satellites began to reconfigure. Their seemingly simple exteriors concealed systems of such complexity that most alien civilizations would consider them pure magic. Jack remembered the meetings. The endless, classified discussions where the world's best minds had war-gamed every possible alien encounter scenario. They had prepared not just for survival, but for a statement. A declaration that humanity would not go quietly into the cosmic night. "They think we're prey," Jack muttered, more to himself than to Sarah. She understood immediately. A small, dangerous smile crossed her face. "They have no idea." The quantum sensors continued to track the approaching Zarkonian fleet. To an untrained eye, it would look like a standard monitoring operation, but every piece of data was being analyzed, categorized, and prepared to be used as a weapon. Humanity had learned something crucial in its relatively short technological existence. Adaptation was survival. Where other civilizations saw rigid systems, humans saw opportunities. Where others saw limitations, humans saw challenges to be overcome. The Zarkonians were coming. They brought with them centuries of conquered worlds, technological supremacy, and an absolute belief in their own invincibility. They were about to meet a species that would challenge everything they thought they knew about warfare, technology, and survival. Jack Thompson watched the incoming data streams, a predatory glint in his eye. The hunt was about to begin. Deep beneath the Andes Mountains, in a facility that didn't exist on any official map, Emily Rodriguez adjusted her augmented reality interface with the precision of a surgeon. Around her, the most advanced research facility in human history hummed with potential energy. This was more than a military installation. It was humanity's insurance policy against extinction. The facility stretched for kilometers underground, a testament to human engineering and global cooperation. Nations that had once been bitter rivals now worked as a single organism, united by a singular purpose: survival. Dr. Michael Chen, the lead quantum systems engineer, approached Emily with a holographic display dancing between his hands. "The adaptive nano-integration is showing some fascinating preliminary results," he said, his voice a mix of scientific excitement and underlying tension. Emily nodded, her dark eyes scanning the complex data streams. The system they were developing was unlike anything in human or alien history. Adaptive nanotechnology that could reshape matter at the molecular level, quantum communication networks that could communicate faster than light, and defensive systems that were less about brute force and more about intelligent response. "We're not just building weapons," Emily muttered, more to herself than to Michael. "We're building a living defense system." The facility was a microcosm of global human potential. Scientists from every continent worked in perfect synchronization. A team of Brazilian programmers collaborated with Chinese quantum physicists. Russian materials engineers worked alongside American adaptive technology specialists. The old boundaries of nation and ideology had dissolved in the face of a greater threat. In a secured chamber adjacent to Emily's control room, a series of prototype defense platforms underwent final testing. What looked like simple metallic cubes could transform into complex defense systems in milliseconds. Each cube contained millions of nanobots capable of restructuring themselves based on incoming threat data. "Incoming data stream from orbital monitoring," announced Aisha Khan, the facility's chief communication specialist. Her fingers flew across holographic interfaces, routing and analyzing information from global sensor networks. Michael Chen leaned in, studying a particularly complex data pattern. "Look at this," he said, highlighting a section of the display. "The way these quantum signatures interact. It's like the system is learning, evolving in real time." Emily understood immediately. This wasn't just about creating a static defense. They were developing an intelligent, adaptive response mechanism that could think faster than any potential alien threat. The facility had layers upon layers of defensive capabilities. On the surface, it appeared to be a standard research complex. Thermal imaging would show nothing unusual. Satellite scans would reveal only minimal activity. But beneath the mountain, an entire ecosystem of technological innovation was taking shape. Power generation was completely decentralized and quantum encrypted. Each system had multiple backup systems, which in turn had their own backup systems. If the Zarkonians thought they could disable human defenses with a simple strike, they were about to learn a painful lesson in human ingenuity. "Adaptive response protocol is at 97% integration," Aisha reported. Her voice was calm, but there was an underlying current of anticipation. They had been preparing for this moment for decades. Emily walked to a massive holographic display that showed a real-time simulation of potential invasion scenarios. Thousands of variables danced across the screen: gravitational calculations, energy signature predictions, potential weapon configurations. Each scenario was analyzed, processed, and potential countermeasures were developed in milliseconds. "We're not just preparing to defend," Emily said to her team, her voice resolute. "We're preparing to show them exactly what humanity is capable of." Michael Chen couldn't help but smile. "They think we're primitive," he said. "They have no idea." The facility continued its work, a beehive of human potential and technological innovation. Outside, the world continued its daily routine, completely unaware of the technological marvel hidden beneath the mountains. Satellites orbited, people went about their lives, and the countdown to the Zarkonian invasion continued. Humanity's true strength wasn't in its weapons. It was in its ability to adapt, to learn, to transform in the face of any challenge. The hidden arsenal was ready, and the universe was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. The first wave of the Zarkonian assault was designed to be overwhelming. Admiral Krelax had conquered civilizations with this exact strategy for 3 centuries. Massive battleships, each kilometers long, dropped out of faster-than-light transit with a display of raw technological might that had broken the spirit of hundreds of species before humanity. Their energy weapons could crack planetary shields. Their quantum disruptors could reduce entire cities to atomic dust in milliseconds. The fleet's configuration was a mathematical perfection of destruction, each ship positioned to maximize coverage, to eliminate any possibility of resistance. In the United Earth Defense Consortium's primary command center, Jack Thompson watched the incoming assault with a calm that seemed almost unnatural. Sarah Reyes, standing beside him, tracked multiple holographic displays that showed the alien approach from countless angles. "They're using the standard Imperial invasion pattern," Jack observed, his voice calm. "Textbook approach. Predictable." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Predictable is good. Predictable is exploitable," Jack replied. The first energy burst from the Zarkonian lead battleship was designed to take out Earth's primary communication and defense networks. A weapon that had reduced civilizations to silence and countless star systems unleashed its full power. What happened next was something no alien civilization had ever witnessed. The energy wave didn't just dissipate. It didn't just get absorbed. It was redirected. Quantum sensors across the planet began to dance. What looked like simple communication satellites started to reconfigure. Their seemingly passive exteriors revealed complex adaptive matrices that began to not just defend, but actively respond. The energy weapon that should have obliterated entire communication networks was suddenly flowing through a series of quantum redirectors. Each redirection point was itself a complex system that analyzed, adapted, and transformed the incoming destructive energy. Admiral Krelax stared in disbelief at his tactical displays. The human planetary defenses weren't just surviving. They were learning. "Impossible," he muttered in the Zarkonian command language. Beneath the Nevada desert, the first of the hidden defensive platforms came to life. What had appeared to be standard research complexes began to shift and transform. Massive hydraulic systems, hidden beneath layers of advanced camouflage, revealed defensive capabilities that defied conventional warfare logic. Adaptive nanotechnology turned defensive platforms into living, thinking systems. Each platform could reconfigure itself faster than the Zarkonian targeting systems could lock on. Energy weapons that should have obliterated entire regions were absorbed, analyzed, and redirected. In orbit, what the aliens thought were simple communication satellites revealed themselves to be something far more complex. Quantum-entangled communication networks began to not just defend, but to attack, sending complex informational viruses back along the energy weapons transmission path. The Zarkonian fleet found itself under an attack it couldn't comprehend. Their own weapons were being used against them. Communication networks were becoming offensive systems. Defensive platforms were thinking, adapting, evolving with each millisecond of the conflict. Jack Thompson's voice remained steady as he issued commands. Engage adaptive response protocols. Show them what humanity can do. Sarah Reyes managed the global defense network with a precision that seemed almost telepathic. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, routing and redirecting energy flows, transforming what should have been a planetary destruction into a complex, adaptive defense mechanism. The first hour of the invasion became a masterclass in technological judo. The Zarkonians' own technological supremacy was being used against them. Each weapon, each attack strategy was instantaneously analyzed, understood, and transformed. Admiral Krelax watched in growing horror as his invasion plan, perfected over centuries of galactic conquest, began to fall apart. The humans weren't just defending. They were teaching his fleet a lesson in warfare that would be studied for generations. They're not just a Tier 3 civilization, one of Krelax's tactical officers muttered in shock. What are they? Jack Thompson allowed himself a small smile. The hunt was truly beginning. Humanity had been preparing for this moment, and the galaxy was about to learn exactly what that preparation meant. Emily Rodriguez wasn't just a scientist. She was a strategic architect of humanity's most devastating weapon, information itself. The Quantum Communications Center beneath the Andes Mountain Complex buzzed with an energy that was part technological marvel, part psychological warfare laboratory. Walls of holographic displays showed complex data streams that would look like meaningless noise to anyone but the most advanced intelligence analysts. "Prepare quantum communication, Vector Alpha 9, Emily commanded, her voice calm and precise. Dr. Michael Chen looked up from his console, a dangerous glint in his eye. "Targeting primary Zarkonian communication networks." "We're going to do more than target," Emily replied. "We're going to completely redefine their understanding of communication, conflict, and consciousness." The Zarkonian communication networks were a marvel of imperial technology. Quantum encrypted, multilayered, designed to be impenetrable. They had conquered hundreds of civilizations using these networks, systems that could transmit information faster than light, coordinate massive fleet movements, and maintain absolute control over subjugated species. They had never met a species like humans. The first wave of informational attack wasn't destructive. It was insidious. Complex data packets began to infiltrate Zarkonian communication systems. These weren't simple viruses or standard hacking attempts. They were living, evolving informational organisms that could adapt in real time. Cultural information began to flood their networks, not just human cultural data, but a carefully constructed mosaic designed to create maximum cognitive dissonance. Philosophical treatises written by Earth's most challenging thinkers appeared in Zarkonian communication channels. Conflicting perspectives, challenging philosophical constructs that had taken humanity centuries to develop, now became weapons of psychological warfare. A Zen Buddhist meditation on the nature of impermanence appeared alongside complex quantum mechanics papers. Ancient indigenous creation myths were interwoven with cutting-edge scientific theories. The information was a weapon designed to challenge the very fundamental way the Zarkonians processed reality. "They're trying to understand," Michael observed, watching the alien communication networks react. "But they can't. That's the point." In the Zarkonian command ship, junior communication analysts began to experience something unprecedented. Their rigid hierarchical understanding of information was being fundamentally challenged. The more they tried to filter and control the incoming data, the more complex and challenging it became. Admiral Krelax watched in growing confusion as his communication networks began to behave in ways that defied all Imperial training. Junior officers started asking questions, challenging protocols. The very structure of Zarkonian military hierarchy began to show unexpected fractures. "This is impossible," Krelax muttered, watching holographic displays that seemed to shift and change with a life of their own. Emily Rodriguez understood something fundamental about information that the Zarkonians did not. Information wasn't just data to be transmitted. It was a living, evolving system. A weapon more powerful than any energy cannon or quantum disruptor. The human data streams weren't just infiltrating Zarkonian networks. They were teaching them a fundamental lesson about the nature of communication, consciousness, and understanding. Every piece of information was carefully constructed. Mathematical proofs that challenged their understanding of physics, artistic expressions that defied their concept of aesthetic value, historical narratives that showed the complexity of human conflict and resolution. Michael Chen tracked the psychological impact in real time. "We're not just fighting," he said to Emily. "We're educating them." The Zarkonian fleet found itself in a conflict it could not comprehend. Their weapons were useless against an attack that wasn't an attack. Their communication networks were being transformed from within. Junior officers began to question the very nature of their imperial mission. Philosophical paradoxes appeared alongside technical schematics. Complex emotional intelligence algorithms challenged their understanding of consciousness. The human information weapon was a multidimensional assault that attacked not just their technology, but their entire conceptual framework. Engaging secondary informational vector, Emily said quietly. The real battle wasn't happening in space. It was happening in the realm of ideas, of understanding, of consciousness itself. Humanity had discovered its most powerful weapon, and the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. The Nevada Desert Research Facility looked like nothing special from the outside. A collection of low-rise buildings, seemingly mundane, surrounded by miles of empty landscape. But beneath the surface, humanity's most audacious technological experiment was about to unfold. Michael Chen stood in the primary control room, his hands dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living energy. Around him, a team of the world's most brilliant engineers and scientists watched with a mixture of anticipation and barely contained excitement. "Adaptive Swarm Protocol Initiating," announced Aisha Khan, her fingers tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. What appeared to be standard defensive satellites began to transform, not in the crude, mechanical way of traditional military hardware, but with a fluidity that defied conventional understanding of technology. The first wave of Zarkonian attack drones approached, expecting to find static defenses. Instead, they encountered something entirely unexpected. Humanity's defensive platforms weren't just machines. They were living systems. Millions of nanobots began to reconfigure in real time. What looked like a simple communication satellite could instantaneously become a complex defensive network. Molecular structures shifted, adapting to incoming threat signatures faster than any alien targeting system could track. A single defensive platform could break apart into hundreds of smaller units, each capable of independent thought and adaptive response. These units could merge, separate, and reconfigure based on the immediate tactical requirement. Energy signature adaptation at 98.7%. Aisha reported, her voice steady despite the complexity of what was happening. The Zarkonian fleet found itself fighting against a defense system that was learning with each millisecond of conflict. Every weapon, every attack strategy was instantaneously analyzed, understood, and neutralized. Michael watched in awe as the defensive platforms performed what could only be described as a technological ballet. Swarm robotics moved with a grace that seemed almost organic. Each unit communicated through quantum-entangled networks, sharing information and adapting faster than the speed of thought. They're not just defending, Michael muttered to himself. They're evolving. Entire squadrons of defensive platforms could transform mid-battle. A collection of satellites could merge into a massive defensive structure or break apart into microscopic defensive units that could slip through the smallest gaps in alien defenses. The Zarkonian fleet had conquered hundreds of civilizations with their technological supremacy. They had never encountered a species that could turn technology itself into a living, thinking weapon. Jack Thompson's voice crackled through the communication network. Adaptive Response Protocol Delta 7. Show them what we can do. In orbit, what appeared to be standard communication satellites began to reveal their true nature. Complex adaptive systems that could transform from communication relays to defensive platforms in microseconds. Energy weapons that could absorb, redirect, and repurpose incoming attacks. The technological improvisation was a symphony of human innovation. Every system was designed with multiple layers of backup, with the ability to learn and adapt instantaneously. A Zarkonian battleship attempting to target a human defensive platform would find the target constantly shifting. Molecular structures that could change density, absorb energy, or completely redirect incoming attacks. Quantum reconfiguration complete, Aisha announced. Michael Chen watched the holographic displays with a sense of wonder. This wasn't just technology. This was a living, thinking system that represented the pinnacle of human potential. The defensive platforms weren't just machines. They were an extension of human consciousness. Each unit carried within it the collective innovation, the collective spirit of an entire species. Zarkonian tactical analysts watched in growing horror as their most advanced attack strategies were neutralized almost before they could be implemented. Their technological supremacy, built over centuries of galactic conquest, was being challenged by a species they had considered primitive. "We're not just defending," Michael said to his team. "We're rewriting the rules of technological warfare." The battle became a dance of technological innovation. Each moment brought new surprises, new adaptations that the Zarkonians could never have anticipated. Humanity had turned technology into art, into a living, breathing expression of collective potential. And the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. The moment of transformation began in a way no alien civilization could have predicted. Jack Thompson stood in the United Earth Defense Consortium's primary command center, watching as humanity shifted from defense to something entirely unprecedented. The entire planet had become a single, living system. Every communication network, every technological platform, every human became a potential point of resistance. Sarah Reyes managed the global defense network with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, routing and redirecting energy flows, transforming what should have been a planetary destruction into a complex, adaptive response mechanism. "Global Unity Protocol engage," she announced, her voice cutting through the tension of the command center. Around the world, systems that had once been separate began to synchronize. Research facilities in the Andes Mountains communicated instantly with orbital defense platforms. Quantum communication networks in Japan linked with adaptive technology centers in Nigeria. The underground facilities in Nevada connected with research stations in Antarctica. What the Zarkonians saw as a single planet was actually a unified, lightning-fast neural network of human potential. Admiral Krelax watched in growing horror as his invasion plan began to disintegrate. The humans weren't just defending. They were transforming the entire concept of conflict. Every system became a potential weapon. Communication networks turned into offensive platforms. Defensive technologies began to push back, not just blocking the alien assault, but actively counterattacking in ways that defied conventional warfare. In the Nevada desert, Michael Chen oversaw the next phase of humanity's response. The adaptive technology platforms that had been developing for decades were about to reveal their true potential. "Engage total system integration," Michael commanded. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. Defensive platforms that had been operating independently began to merge into a global network. Each platform carried within it the collective innovation of human potential. They weren't just machines, they were an expression of human consciousness. Quantum-entangled communication networks became living systems. Each communication node could transform, adapt, redirect. What looked like a simple satellite could become a complex defensive structure in microseconds. Emily Rodriguez, monitoring from the Andes Mountain facility, watched as humanity's preparation came to fruition. "We're not just fighting," she muttered. "We're evolving in real time." The Zarkonian fleet found itself confronting something it could not comprehend. Every attack was immediately analyzed, understood, and neutralized. Their most advanced weapon systems were being turned against them faster than they could recalibrate. Jack Thompson's final transmission to the alien fleet was chilling in its simplicity. "We are not your prey." Global cooperation reached levels never before seen in human history. Nations that had been rivals for centuries now worked as a single organism. Scientific teams from every continent collaborated in real time, sharing information, adapting strategies, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The adaptive technologies developed over decades revealed their true purpose. Each defensive platform was more than a weapon. It was a living, thinking system that carried within it the collective potential of an entire species. Zarkonian tactical analysts watched in growing panic as their invasion plan fell apart. Their quantum communication networks were being infiltrated, their attack strategies neutralized almost before they could be implemented. "Impossible," Admiral Krelax muttered, watching holographic displays that seemed to shift and change with a life of their own. The battle was no longer about physical combat. It was about potential, about the ability to adapt, to learn, to transform in real time. Every human became a potential point of resistance, every system a potential weapon. The entire planet had transformed into a single, living, thinking defensive mechanism. Michael Chen watched the holographic displays with a sense of wonder. "We're not just fighting," he said to his team. "We're showing them what humanity can do." The turning point wasn't a single moment. It was a continuous process of adaptation, of transformation. Humanity was rewriting the rules of conflict, of technological warfare, of what it meant to be a spacefaring civilization. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as a species it had considered primitive demonstrated a level of unity, innovation, and potential that would be studied for generations to come. Humanity had been preparing for this moment, and the universe was about to learn exactly what that meant. News of the human resistance spread through alien communication networks like a quantum wildfire. It wasn't just information. It was a fundamental challenge to the established galactic order. In the remote communication relay stations of a dozen subjugated civilizations, hope began to flicker to life. Beings who had lived under Zarkonian oppression for generations watched in stunned silence as a previously unknown species did what no one had ever done before: stand against the imperial might and win. The Vrelek, a silicon-based species from the Omega Quadrant, had been conquered 3 centuries earlier. Their entire civilization reduced to a resource extraction colony, they had long forgotten the concept of resistance. But now their communication networks began to buzz with something they hadn't felt in generations: possibility. On a mining colony in the Sirius system, a group of Krell-Theri workers, genetically modified to be nothing more than living tools, began to whisper. The human resistance wasn't just a military victory. It was a message. Emily Rodriguez understood the psychological warfare they were waging went far beyond the current conflict. Each transmission, each captured communication stream was carefully constructed to do more than just defeat the Zarkonians. They were teaching resistance. "We're not just fighting a war," she told Michael Chen as they analyzed the expanding communication networks. "We're starting a revolution." The Zarkonian Imperial communication networks began to fracture. Junior officers started asking questions. Centuries of absolute control began to show unexpected vulnerabilities. The rigid hierarchical structure that had maintained imperial control for millennia started to develop cracks. Admiral Krelax found himself facing something unprecedented. His own communication networks were becoming a weapon against him. Transmissions from conquered civilizations began to intermingle with human informational attacks, creating a complex tapestry of resistance that the imperial systems couldn't filter or control. Jack Thompson watched the expanding conflict with a strategic eye. This was more than a battle. This was a fundamental challenge to galactic power structures. In the depths of space, other civilizations began to see the conflict differently. The Zarkonians had always presented themselves as an unstoppable force. Now, that myth was being systematically dismantled. The human resistance wasn't just military, it was ideological. Each transmission carried complex philosophical challenges. Information about human history, stories of overcoming adversity, of breaking through seemingly impossible limitations, began to spread through alien networks. Sarah Reyes managed the global communication strategy with surgical precision. Every piece of information was a carefully crafted weapon. Cultural exchanges, scientific discoveries, philosophical debates, all became tools of resistance. "We're giving them something more dangerous than weapons," Sarah explained to her team. "We're giving them hope." The Krell-Theri mining colonies were the first to show visible signs of change. Small acts of resistance began to appear. Work schedules disrupted. Communication networks used in ways they weren't intended. The rigid control that had defined their existence for generations began to show unexpected fractures. On a dozen different worlds, beings who had been considered nothing more than resources began to remember what it meant to have agency. The Vrelic communication networks became a conduit of subtle rebellion, mathematical proofs that challenged imperial control, cultural exchanges that highlighted the value of individual thought. Each transmission was a small act of defiance. Admiral Krelax watched in growing horror as the imperial structure he had served for centuries began to crumble. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were dismantling an entire system of galactic control. Emily Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. "We're not conquering," she told her team. "We're liberating." The galactic communication networks transformed. What had been a system of imperial control became a complex, evolving system of shared information and potential. Conquered civilizations began to reconnect, to share experiences, to remember what resistance looked like. Jack Thompson's final transmission to the alien fleet became a rallying cry that would be studied for generations. Humanity does not seek to conquer. We seek to liberate. The battle was no longer just about Earth. It was about the fundamental nature of freedom, of potential, of the right of any civilization to determine its own path. The galaxy held its collective breath. Something fundamental had changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The aftermath of the conflict defied every standard of galactic diplomacy. Admiral Krelax stood before the United Earth Defense Consortium's representatives, a figure broken not by military defeat, but by the complete dismantling of everything he had ever believed. The vast Zarkonian fleet, once the most feared armada in the galaxy, had been reduced to a collection of disabled vessels, their technological supremacy revealed as nothing more than an elaborate illusion. Jack Thompson led the diplomatic team with a calm that spoke of decades of preparation. Beside him, Emily Rodriguez and Sarah Rice represented humanity's complex approach to first contact, part scientific analysis, part philosophical inquiry, entirely unexpected. "You were given a choice," Jack stated, his voice carrying the weight of a species that had just rewritten the rules of galactic engagement: surrender or be destroyed. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The Zarkonians, who had conquered hundreds of civilizations, now found themselves at the mercy of a species they had considered insignificant. Quantum communication networks still hummed with the aftermath of humanity's informational warfare, a campaign that had done more damage than any physical weapon could have achieved. Emily Rodriguez stepped forward, her approach more academic than militaristic. "We're not interested in conquest," she explained. "We're interested in understanding." Across the galaxy, the ripple effects of the conflict continued to spread. Subjugated civilizations began to reassert themselves. The Vrelic mining colonies threw off their imperial constraints. The Krelthuri workers began to rebuild their societies. Entire star systems that had been nothing more than resource extraction points for millennia started to rediscover their potential. Michael Chen managed the technological exchange, ensuring that the liberated civilizations received the support they needed to rebuild. Quantum communication networks that had once been tools of oppression now became conduits of shared knowledge and mutual support. "This isn't about revenge," Michael explained to his team. "This is about breaking cycles of oppression." The Zarkonian Imperial Database, now completely accessible thanks to humanity's informational warfare, revealed the true extent of their galactic control. Hundreds of civilizations have been systematically suppressed, their technological and cultural development deliberately stunted. Sarah Rice worked tirelessly to help these civilizations reconnect. Each communication network became a lifeline, each shared piece of information a step towards recovery. Admiral Krelax found himself in a position he had never anticipated. The humans weren't executing him. They weren't enslaving his people. They were offering something far more challenging: the opportunity to rebuild, to learn, to change. "We understand the complexity of your history," Jack Thompson told the defeated admiral. "Systemic oppression doesn't end with a single battle. It ends with understanding." Global conferences brought together representatives from liberated civilizations. The United Earth Defense Consortium transformed into something far more significant: a coalition of species committed to mutual growth, scientific exchange, and collective protection. The technological innovations developed during the conflict began to show their true potential. Adaptive nanotechnology that had been defensive weapons became tools for planetary reconstruction. Quantum communication networks became bridges between civilizations. Emily Rodriguez presented a comprehensive plan for galactic rehabilitation. It wasn't about punishment. It was about healing, about providing the support necessary for diverse civilizations to grow and develop on their own terms. "We're not creating an empire," she explained to the gathered representatives. "We're creating a network of mutual support." The Zarkonian Imperial database revealed something unexpected. Humanity wasn't the first species to resist. They were simply the first to succeed so completely, so comprehensively. Michael Chen discovered technological innovations from suppressed civilizations that had been deliberately hidden. Each discovery was a testament to the potential that had been brutally suppressed for generations. As the conferences continued, a new understanding began to emerge. Galactic engagement wasn't about conquest. It was about mutual growth, about understanding the unique potential of each civilization. Jack Thompson's final statement to the gathered representatives became a founding principle of this new cosmic order. Diversity is strength. Potential is universal, and no civilization has the right to suppress another's growth. The day Earth showed its teeth became more than a military victory. It became a fundamental reimagining of what galactic civilization could be. The universe watched, and everything changed.